This is a directed net, which means all calls are to be made to the net control station unless you're instructed otherwise, and all RAYNET-UK operators are invited and encouraged to check into the net. When you do check in, please announce your call sign slowly and phonetically, followed by your name, and if you wish to leave the net immediately after checking in, then please call in and out. Otherwise, if you want to leave after subsequent turns, then please make it clear you want to check out at that time. After I've heard a few check-ins, I'll repeat who I've heard. If you're not acknowledged, then please do try again. And if you miss your turn to call in, I will be calling for any strays at the end of the UK and international sections. So I'll now begin taking check-ins to the RAYNET-UK weekly activity net as usual in call sign number order, starting with stations with figure 8 in their call sign. Please call now. This is G4 and RC.
Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie. Name's Phil, and I'll stay through the net Greg G8 KLC.
Yankee. I'll try that one again. Golf 8 Echo Yankee. Name is Mike.
G4 and RC. Okay, good afternoon, Phil. Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie and Mike Golf 8 Echo Yankee. Any other 8s, please? G4 and RC. If there were any other 8s, we'll take them in the strays. Stations figure 7 in that call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over. G7LEH, Golf 7 November, Echo Hotel. Good afternoon, Greg.
Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar. Good afternoon, Greg. Can you put me in and out today, please? But I'll be monitoring just this minute got in.
G4 and RC's got Graham, Golf 7 November Echo Hotel, staying with me, and Dave, Mike 7 Alpha Victor Oscar, in and out. Thanks, Dave. Any other 7s, please? G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, no more 7s. Let's try 6s. Stations figure 6 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over. For an RC, second call, any stations figure 6 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over. G4 and RC, then it's stations figure 5 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over. Since we don't have many 5s, let's go straight to the 4s. Stations figure 4 in that call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
Italy 2, stroke George 4 Echo Kilowatt Mexico. Steve, Northumbria RAYNET.
Italy 2 / Golf 4 Echo Kilo Mike, G4 and RC. Good afternoon, Steve. It's nice to get that call sign in context, as we'll explain to others later. Any other 4s, please? G4 and RC, over.
G4 KIL, Philip, South Sussex.
For an RC, good afternoon, Philip. Golf 4 Kilo India Lima. Okay, we'll move into the 3s. Stations figure 3 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4 and RC, over.
Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, Ian.
G4NRC, good afternoon, Ian, Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray. Any other threes, please? G4NRC, over. For NRC, nothing heard, so let's go for the twos. Stations figure 2 in their call sign, and that includes you as immediate twos. Please call now, G4NRC, over.
2 Echo 0, Mike 2 Alpha, Everly, something RAYNET.
G4NRC, good afternoon, Elodie. 2 Echo 0, Mike Zulu Alpha. Any other twos, please? G4NRC, over. For NRC, then it's stations figure 1. Figure 1 in their call sign, please go ahead. G4NRC, over. G4NRC, second call, any stations figure 1. Figure 1 in their call sign, please go ahead, over. G4NRC, nothing heard, so let's go for the zeros. As usual, Mike 0 stations, Mike 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier, please call now. This is G4NRC, over.
Mike 0, Mike, Foxtrot Sierra, Drew, Waven, in and out.
Zero Whiskey X-Ray Golf, Shirley in Cornwall, in and out. Thank you, Greg.
Mike 0, India Tango Mike, Andy, Shirley in Cornwall, in and out. Thank you, Greg.
G4NRC, okay, so I've got Drew, Mike 0, Mike Foxtrot Sierra, Shirley, Mike 0, Whiskey X-Ray Golf, and Andy, Mike 0, India Tango Mike. All sounding good this afternoon, but all in and out. Any other Mike 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier, please? G4NRC, over. For NRC, then let's have the Golf 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier, please. G4NRC, over.
Golf Whiskey 0, Juliet Lima X-Ray. Good afternoon, Greg. Name is Andy, RAYNET Pembrokeshire. No traffic today, so in and out, please. Over.
G4NRC, good afternoon, Andy. Golf Whiskey 0, Juliet Lima X-Ray, and copied in and out. Nice signal today anyway. Any other Golf 0 stations of any regional secondary identifier, please? G4NRC, over. G4NRC, then any United Kingdom stations that missed their turn to call in, please call now. G4NRC, over.
Mike 0, November Alpha Sierra Neil from Essex RAYNET, in and out, but monitoring to the end.
Zero November Alpha Sierra, good afternoon, Neil. Copy to you in and out. So thanks for listening to the end. Let's try for any international liaison stations. Norway, Ireland, Slovenia, Slovakia, we've had them all. Any international liaison stations, please call now. G4NRC, over. G4NRC. Okay, any station, any country, any nationality who's missed their turn to call in, please call now. G4NRC, over. G4NRC, I'll take that. We'll have a small and compact net today. So, standard reminder, the net is being live streamed by Graham, G7NEH, to YouTube this afternoon. Live stream and recording are available by searching Golf 7 November Echo Hotel G7NEH on YouTube, then clicking on the Streams tab. There's no video again from me this week, just because it will improve the viewing figures from everything we've experienced so far. Thanks to everyone who took the time and effort to respond to the Ofcom consultation. We now probably have quite a few weeks to wait until the first wave of licence changes come through, so maybe it's something to put on your Christmas list. Remember that this first wave will include any changes to talk through in remote control operations and a whole new licence structure, if Ofcom sticks to the plan. High in the news this week has been the earthquake in Morocco, which at last sighted claimed over 2,000 lives. The Moroccan National Amateur Radio Society, known by the abbreviation ARRAM, Alpha Romeo Romeo Alpha Mike, is relatively new to emergency communications, only effectively signed up in February. So with only 24 members, they've had to struggle to provide any response locally. But there are a number of search and rescue teams from other countries heading to the area, and some of them have radiometers embedded as part of their teams or even as part of their operations. Aram has not asked for any HF frequency to be kept clear, but as the situation develops and search and rescue teams arrive, it would be good for radiometers to take extra care around the HF emergency sensor of activity frequencies in case any search and rescue teams start to use frequencies to talk back to their home countries. As always, please avoid spreading any rumours about the disaster, pass any requests for assistance to the local Red Cross, and listen carefully before transmitting on HF around the HF centre of activity frequencies. Since we have had it in the UK, where there's been international offers of assistance for events we've had on, the question for our limited crowd today, mostly aimed at the group controllers, is how would you let other groups know if you had a problem? And how would you deal with offers of assistance heading directly to you? So, with that one, let's see what anybody else has got by way of news and any comments. Starting with Phil, Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC in the group, G8 Channel C. Very afternoon to one and all. Yeah, sorry for not being around for the last couple of weeks. It's clashed with either family events or radio club events that have not been back in time. Question for the assembled, possibly for you, Greg, but not necessarily in your old role as technical, but in your current role as ZC. Are there any coordination on CTC SS tones on local repeaters? I'm not talking about the GB series. I'm talking about the one-day pop-ups that we use. Obviously, we want to use CTCSS. I wonder if there's any national guidance on that. The old one of frequency allocation or preferred frequencies so that we don't interrupt each other. I'm wondering if that scheme has got any further. That would somebody like to recommend perhaps 2 spot frequencies in the VHF band that Lincolnshire could use. Third question, third answer. If somebody came up and says, do you want to help? And they had a valid license or could prove that they had a valid license, then after biting their arm off, I would certainly find tasks for them to do. If you don't find a task for a volunteer, he will go away and generate a task for himself, and that may not be what I want. So we'd do the best we can there. And I can't remember what the next question was. Oh yes, if we needed help, phone calls to local group controllers or adjacent group controllers, as well as a request on the National Diary. I think that's all. G4 NRC, G8 KLC, Lincolnshire.
It's KLC G4NLC. Can you just remind me, or because I was typing and trying to think at the same time, what was the purpose for the two spot frequencies in VHF again, over?
Standard group operational frequencies, so we don't clash on events.
Right, G4NLC returning. Okay, right, so recognising, as you say, I am not technical team leader anymore because we don't have a technical team. It's the operational support team. It was posted many, many months, or maybe even years ago. I suggested, as the previous tech team leader, that CTCS tones on talk-throughs should be the same as the RSGB tones designated per county. The rationale behind this was that so many members had so many difficulties trying to set CTCSS tones up. If they've got it right for the local repeater, it should be reasonably okay for it to be right for the RAYNET usage as well. And since the RSGB had already split up the CTCSS tones across counties at county level, it felt like a no-brainer. However, I got sufficient backlash from it and people telling me I was an idiot that that is really the only guidance you still have left, Phil, is to follow the RSGB tones. As far as spot frequencies in VHF for Lincolnshire, interesting challenge, because while I would tongue-in-cheek say ASCII-ZC, some zones do have spot frequencies which can be used, and they have coordinated them within the zones. So we know in Zone 10, Cheshire uses 145.2, and only Cumbria uses 145.2. Within our zone, everybody else uses the other frequencies, and that coordinates for us. So let's have a think about how we could find something just for Lincolnshire in the absence of a zonal plan. Copied, you would find something for a volunteer to do. I was thinking about what happened many years ago up here, where we did get overseas people contacting group controllers directly saying that they could run a net because they could internet link in through one of the local repeaters. So that was the kind of thing that required management. And it does align to your second point. If you don't find something for somebody to do, they will try and find something anyway. But it gets a little harder when you've got people coming from massively out of area just landing. It's the contingent volunteer thing I think we have discussed before. So I've answered 2 out of 3, maybe. Thanks for that. I'm sure there'll be more, but let's see what we get from Mike, noting that the only thunderstorm of any significance in the country seems to be heading towards the Wash at a great rate of knots. Golf 8 Echo Echo Yankee, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC from G8EY. Yes, I've had plenty of warnings on the subject of thunderstorm. At the moment, we are 31 centigrade, 1013 millibars, 44% relative humidity, which is quite low, 21% cloud cover, and a 9-mile-an-hour wind from 157 degrees. I've been watching the major storms going basically up to my left, as it were, i.e. to the west, and some big storms have gone through West Cambridgeshire, now heading through Peterborough area, and as you say, into the Wash. I'm keeping an eye on the storms as they go by, but so far, certainly East Norfolk, or mid-Norfolk, I've not seen anything. Yes, I've always thought of myself as being small and compact, maybe not so compact these days. I was interested, on this business of the consultation, that if they do actually go ahead and implement a lot of the changes very early on, and I would have thought the RSGB are going to have a big time rewriting an entire training curriculum, because obviously most of it will be out of date. As far as local use, repeaters and so on, talk-throughs, less, we use county RSGB, CTCSS for those. We might use different CTCSS for control channels, but all the main ones will be on the agreed county CTCSS. And we try to keep well, normally we go on 144650. We tend to go 144 side. And I know that North Anglia also are on 650, but we've never had a problem. And we sometimes use 625 when we go out towards the coast if we're using 650 inland. From the point of view of contacts from outside world, yeah, it's a difficult one. Whatever was being offered, I would definitely have to run it through the local voluntary and faith coordination cell, see whether they really needed outside help. And then I would go to the little file I've got, which is all the Zone 4 contacts. So I can always email or phone people. And that would be the next step. Otherwise, that's all I've got for this round from G8EEY.
All faked Echo Echo Yankee, G4NLC. Okay, thanks, Mike. Yeah, interesting your cloud cover is as light as it is. It's been fairly 100% cloud here in Cheshire all day. It only now feels like it's brightening up. To make the northwest work, we did reuse a frequency in the form of 145.2, which we were using long before the space station came around, which left 145.225 available as a sort of zonal standby overflow channel or for coordination between groups. The problem with coordination between groups is depends what you're trying to coordinate. Because local authority, police and National Health Service boundaries, not one of them overlaps with what you might like to do. So a few things were put forward, and equally we thought 145.225 could be a data channel to link stuff together. So we did do that on a zonal basis. Phil will remember, as will you potentially, Mike, the number of times we tried gathering this information in from groups in the past, with varying results. And I did actually find a lot of it not that recently, or not that long ago, sorry. So we'll have a dust off and see if there's anything easily visible. Of course, all bets are off because with the license changes, potential license changes, RSGB are talking about, nearly tripped myself up then, are talking about having to redo the band plan to make room for lots of these low-powered repeaters that anybody will be able to set up. So we can expect pressure on our frequencies as well, I expect, at some point. And our frequencies, we share them. They're for community and emergency use. They're not dedicated for RAYNET. Okay, let's see how many viewers we've lost with that opening sentence. Graham, G7NEH, G0DUB, over. Correction, G4, and I'll see over.
G4NRC, G7NEH. Yeah, good afternoon, Greg. Good afternoon to all on the net. Last week's view figures were 38 views and I think it was 4 likes. I've just got my screen on the phone at the moment trying to pair a watch. So yeah, not too bad. So that the lack of video seems to increase the view figures, Greg, HI. But there we go, not a lot else to add from me. So if you can skip us on the next round, Greg, I will be listening, if that's okay. So back to you, G4NRC, G7NEH.
G7NEH, G4NRC. Okay, Graham, yeah, marked to skip on the next round. Do need to have another chat or otherwise with you about forthcoming Cheshire events. We have gone from nothing as reported on this net for a while to effectively having or assisting with 4 events in very quick succession over the next few weeks. So far, nothing likely to hurt attendance on the DMR net, but we'll see what happens. Right, I will call for strays since we have a short net. I will call for any extras when we get to the end because we've only got 4 stations left to run. So, Steve, Italy 2 / Golf 4 Echo Kilo Mike, good afternoon to you again. And to elaborate to others, Steve called me on a Parks on the Air activation on Friday and it was hearing his call sign in a different context that totally wobbled me. Italy 2/Golf 4 Echo Kilo Mike. This is G4 and RC, over.
Yeah, G4 and RC. Italy 2/G4 EKM. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. From sunny Italy. Got round about the 30-degree mark. CTSS, I think I agree with what everybody else says. It's normally the local RSGB regions that we follow. And as Greg has mentioned, it was nice to catch up with them on it was on 20 meters on Parks on the Air. He was operating from one park, I was operating from another park. So it's amazing what you can do with it was 10 watts at my end from one of the little Chinese rigs just into a telescopic quarter wave antenna for 20 meters. So that was quite interesting. I had quite a few contacts actually into the UK and back to my home location, Sunderland, and it just goes to prove the difference in location and antennas. Here I'm using at the house here. I'm using a half-size G5 RV, but I am in the mountains, and I can't get through to the local lads back in the northeast on 20 meters. I'm really down in the noise. But when I was in a more open space using a vertical antenna, 5.9 signals. So just goes to prove things. It's strange here. The bands only seem to open up after about 4 o'clock local. So what's that? 2 p.m. UTC. 20 meters just starts to open up then. But when I was at the other location, it opened up a lot sooner. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Greg. This is I2/G4 EKM.
2/Golf 4 Echo Kilo Mike. Golf 4 November Romeo Charlie returning, making sure I don't make another call sign blip then. Yes, it was interesting. It would be nice, he says, not really meaning it, to have a national power outage to see whether home would get any better with a bigger antenna. But quite crazy to be able to go out and just operate off a hamstick mobile whip on top of a vehicle with 5 watts from an FT818 and working reasonably down to Italy, Austria, Switzerland, etc. So not too bad, and even one transatlantic contact, whereas today we've had an IARU Region 1 emergency comms activity period on JS8 call. 40 meters was pretty much UK only, and 20 meters, not a lot of takers at all. So might have to try doing one of those remotely as well one time. Right, to get my conscience out of the way, Philip, I've made very little progress with the Radio Oddity DB25, but I'm getting closer. Golf 4 Kilo India Lima, G4 and RC, over.
G4 and RC from G4KL. Well, obviously no rush, but interested to hear what you make of it, Greg, on that one. Right, I made a few notes. Yes, CTCSS. I have to say we don't follow that convention locally. I'm not going to particularly justify whether we do or not. Perhaps I'll merely try and state what has happened. If anyone does come to support us in the notifications they get, they will be informed what frequencies and what CTCSSs we like to use, and they will be explicitly asked not to mention the CTCSS tones over the air, which gives you some indication. There's been a feeling, I think, in the past. That using generally known ones would open up more chances of unwanted access and interference and so on. I think that's where it's come from. There was a mention about use of 2 frequencies. I was only half listening, so I apologise if I've got the wrong end of the stick here. What I will say is that we had an exercise, we had an event earlier in the year, which involved an 80, I think it's 80 mile, not even 80 kilometre cycle ride, amongst some other things. and the was weaving in and out of the downs. And then the way we provided communication over the whole event was to set up 2 talk-throughs on the top of 2 tall hills. Each talk-through had a common UHF frequency but different VHF frequency, which then allowed us to communicate across the entire site, anybody more or less. That did seem to work quite well, but it worked well for one of the talk-through masts, which hadn't been propped up very well, fell down, but it didn't take long to put it back up again. So that was 2 different frequencies, VHF frequencies on the same event. I'm not quite sure whether that tied in with what you were talking about or not. Right, other things I've noted. First of all, in context of HR, we mentioned the JS8 call. I had kind of hoped I might be able to do that. Didn't manage to get involved with that one today. It would have been a push in terms of other things I'm doing, I have to say, but there were a couple of other reasons as well. I'm hoping to have 3 different ways of using GS8 Core. One is with a Raspberry Pi. That works beautifully, except that I've used the Raspberry Pi for something else at the moment and couldn't use that. I couldn't get it to work on the Linux side of my Chromebook, even though I got, it did have FLDigi working, though the last time I tried that it didn't work either. So that wasn't so clever. I got a JS8 call to download onto a Mac Mini, but for some reason it wouldn't see the signal link when I plugged it in on the USB. So the last time I tried it, I couldn't get through anyway on that one, which was a shame. So that's why part of the reason I wasn't involved today. I hope to sort of pursue that and get it sorted soon. Right, going on with HF, apologies that I wasn't up on Friday. I think I said I would be, and then realised at the last minute I wouldn't because I was involved in another event, which stopped that. That might have been the week before, was it? I can't remember. Anyway, I might be up this Thursday. I had said I wouldn't make it on being a Thursday, but I think this coming Thursday is a possibility, so I hope to be up on the HFnet on Thursday. Right, next week I may not be up on this DMR net. This Anytime Radio I've got now is going back to where I got it from while it's still in warranty, because it forgets what the time, the real-time clock forgets its settings if it's off for more than about 5 or 6 days. For instance, I corrected it when I was using it on Monday night. When I switched it on today, it had forgotten it. And the people I got it for seem to reckon that is probably something that could be corrected. So it may be out of my hands. I should theoretically be able to get it on a handheld, but I do have a problem with a handheld.
Time out. Chief for an RC, the challenge for Philip is whether or not keeping his finger on the PTT means his radio doesn't acknowledge this is going to time out. Chief for KIL, we know why your radio is going to be going back to the dealers. Was there anything further, Chief for an RC, over?
Oh, from G4K. Oh, sorry for waffling too long. I wonder if that was my timeout or yours. I got a timeout on this radio. I think that was most of it. I think mainly I was just talking about the problems of programming the handheld and not agreeing, not getting the software to run on there. I think that's the only thing I ever said. So it sounds like you got most of it. Sorry for overrunning the timeout. G4NRC, G4K out.
G4KIL, G4NRC, yeah, I think it was your radio timeout. It was about 240 seconds and it dropped. Well, that's what slowed me down with Radio Oddity. Having enjoyed moderate VFO usage on some radios, I've not quite mastered it yet on the Radio Oddity DB25. So I'm happy to think about what I want in the code plug again, which is going to take longer than it should do rather than just planting some frequencies in and making it happen. Right, CTCSS not being passed over the air. The trouble is, as systems have evolved, you can just set a lot of, certainly Yaesu, Kenwood, etc. handhelds just to scan for the CTSS. It gives no privacy on what's being transmitted. It just stops somebody being decoded and relayed, but still doesn't stop them jamming your frequencies with louder RF, even if it is the wrong CTCSS. We don't use it much in Cheshire, and when we have had it and more people have come to us with CTCSS enabled, it's been a little embarrassing because we could hear them, they couldn't hear us because CTCSS was set and they couldn't find their way to the checkpoint. having to send somebody to find your RAYNET operator first, reprogram his radio, and then get him to the right checkpoint was a little bit of a delay. However, there's always ways of using things. Okay, next for us, Ian, Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC on the net, G3ZHX, good afternoon to you all. Yes, don't talk to me about CTCSS. I was running talk-throughs in the early days when the group adopted CTCSS, and the number of different combinations you can have, and not to mention the fact that I had a talk-through that was, I'm trying to remember now, I think it was decoding but not encoding, or maybe it was the other way around. There are just too many ways to set this up. Anyhow, thunderstorms. The thunderstorms seemed to start over Aylesbury and then made their way northeast, and I have to say that has been the most active thunderstorm I've seen so far on the maps. And apart from that, I'm afraid I have nothing really to contribute, so I'll hand it back now from G3ZHX.
Golf 3 Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4NRC. Yes, I concur. There were 3 patches when I first looked. Another one seems to have sprung up around Lincolnshire. One heading out over Newcastle, one around the Barrow and Furness area, and then the one over the Wash is just still going strong. So lots of thunder activity. I was wondering if it was going to cause me issues on HF this afternoon, but surprisingly not. Other than maybe people turning their stations off so they didn't get hit. So, okay, thanks, Ian. Next is LED, then I will call to see if there's anybody who wants to join before we do the second round. So, 2 Echo 0, Mike Zulu Alpha, G4NRC, over.
G4NRC, 2E0MJ, for the net. For both of those, well, I was in and out, I forgot to mention, but KAL, as we're basically part of the same RAYNET group, gave answers for the questions I would have responded to anyway. I should be in this net next weekend, no further traffic, over.
To Echo 0, Mike Zulu Alpha, G4NRC. Yes, it's the kind of novelty as well of having 2 people on from the same group. I mean, I know I usually message up because there's 3 West Cheshire on with myself and the H and AVO, but in practice I try not to do Cheshire stuff more than I have to. I'll leave it to the others. Okay, march you out on the next one if you're meant to call in and out on the first round, not a problem, and look forward to hearing you next weekend. Okay, are there any stations who wish to check in before I go and do a final round of the net? Any stations, any number, please call now, G4NRC, over.
Golf 6, Papa Delta Echo.
Six, Papa Delta Echo. Go ahead then, Chris. Over to you. G4NRC, over.
Good afternoon, Greg. Good afternoon, all. Just come back from representing the local radio club at an event at Martlesham Heath Airfield, or what was Martlesham Heath Airfield. Yeah, control tower still exists and a bit of the runways. Most of it's been built on. So unfortunately, that meant I didn't get a chance to ever go with the JSA call, which I was looking forward to. But I will try next time around. I've got 2 ways of doing the JSA call. The way I was hoping to try was with Raspberry Pi, which I've had working on JSA call with QDX, QRP levels, QDX very low power. So I've had some success with that. And then using C from my phone to access it. What I haven't tested yet is trying that without any network connection to make sure I can still get an IP address to the Raspberry Pi and that the timing still works. I've bought one of these little USB GPSs to help with the timing, but I haven't been configuring that yet. That's all from me this week, Greg. Back to you. G4NRC from G6PDE.
Golf 6, Papa Delta Echo, G4NRC. Yeah, I want to bring you another second round for that USB GPS for timing. I put a real-time clock on a Raspberry Pi with the idea that it would keep time and would be charged up frequently enough, given the Pi went on at least every evening. It now is damned if it will actually provide synchronized time. so I'll be looking at putting USB GPS on as a potentially more reliable method of keeping timing going on some of the Pis. My next Pi project, though, is getting a Pi 4 running SDR software so I can get active on QO100. Don't want to commit a proper laptop to it, need something a bit dedicated, so that's where we're at. There was another comment about JS8 call, but it will come back to mind as I hit around the rest of the list. So I think that's it. Doesn't affect anybody here, but we've done a review of Facebook members on the RAYNET UK group and active memberships. So there's some people who have not been dropped off the list for a variety of reasons. There will be a bit of a purge coming on Facebook to keep that group trusted. But other than that, I haven't got anything for a second round. So Phil, back to the top of the list, and you hopefully answered your question about CTCSS tones. I'll root out the older data, but some of it is around what high spots are you thinking of using as well from Lincolnshire to try and coordinate frequencies. I mean, the last work I remember when anybody did try coordinating frequencies nationally was wartime planning in the 1980s for RAYNET, when all our activities were going to distill down onto 2 meters and no other bands. So that was the last time anybody really tried an exercise of coordinating everything across the whole country. Golf 8, Kilo Lima Charlie, G4 and RC over.
Yeah, G4 and RC in the group G8 KLC. Yeah, okay, Greg. Yeah, I think we've had a couple of attempts at not necessarily coordinating frequencies, but certainly listing frequencies. You gave me a list about 9 months ago, I think, that had 2 or 3 of the zones in it. I managed to merge zone 4 into it, so it was halfway there. I just wondered whether it had improved or not, whether it had been brought up within whether it been brought up in COM without appearing in the news, but apparently it hasn't. Not to worry. Thanks very much to Mike. Yes, using 625 and 650, we'll keep away from those. So if we know you're using it, then there's no point in us putting it in our plans as well. That would be silly. So that was useful. CTCSS repeaters, absolutely agree with you. If there was no coordination, then I was going to go to the ISGB repeater areas and use the same CTCSSs. It sort of makes sense, not for quite for the same reasons as you gave, but they were also valid. If you've managed a local repeater, you can probably manage the same tones on a different repeater, HI. So that was all very useful. That's probably all the notes I've got. I can add to the weather forecast that it is now raining here, so it is raining here also, and got some thunder, but not actually seen any lightning yet. So with that, I'll say 7-3s. I'll carry on monitoring, but I won't come back. G4 and I'll see in the group G8 KLC Lincolnshire.
Golf 8 Kilo Lima Charlie, G4 and RC. Yeah, okay. Usually it would be good. The only reliable frequency information I used to get was for talk-through usage. And occasionally you'd get groups who would report on their evidence through the diary what was going on. However, not all groups use the diary or report on their talk-through usages the way they could do, so it is a bit hard to get the info. Okay, Phil, glad we've answered your questions, and next it is down to Mike, Golf 8 Echo Echo Yankee, G4 and RC over.
G4 and RC from G8 EY. Yes, some interesting thoughts today and things like that. Nothing too much more to add. As far as I can see, the really big storm is now on the Lincolnshire coast going into the wash. It is a big one, according to what's appearing on my screen. And I'm safely say, aha, famous last words, that it hasn't hit us at this point. But you never know. Thanks for running the net, Greg, and we'll probably see you next week if all goes according to plan. From G8EEY. Over.
Golf 8 Echo Echo Yankee G4 and RC. Aha, a plan. That would be useful. I've got a messed up couple of weeks coming along, which seems to have every evening involved with some form of teleconference or otherwise. And in the midst of all this, I've had an outstanding request to try and do a bit of a show and tell to any RAYNET HFT members about how to set up JS8 call and what data mode should be used and so on. So that's got to go in one evening over the next 10 days as well. We will prevail somehow. Who needs food? Okay, 7 trees to you. Graham's left us, so it's well over the waters to Steve. Italy 2/Golf 4 Echo Kilo Mike. G4 and RC over.
Yeah, from Italy 2/G4 EKM. Yeah, all okay there. Thanks for running the net, Greg. Nice to hear you all again. I will be out next week sometime, not too sure what day, but I will be posting on the porter spots as to when I'm out there. Just on frequencies, by the way. Generally, up in the northeast, we use 625 or 650, and we normally just coordinate between the various groups. But the way things stand at the moment, it's generally just one event which is occurring on one particular time, and there's the various groups are participating. So we don't have a great problem. A bit like one of the guys mentioned about big events. One of the big ones that we have is the ETAP de Dales, and from memory, I think there was about 4 or 5 talk-throughs with all different links, etc., etc. And we were generally using, I think we were using 6 meters, if I remember, as one of the main link frequencies. But also we have one of the other groups has an NOV for an out-of-band frequency, just to be used by that particular event. Can't remember what it was, 156 or something or other. Okay, 73's all. Hope you all manage to survive the storms up there. I'm just managing here. It's a hard life, managing the heat. This is Italy 2/G4 EKM. Ciao.
Italy 2/Golf 4 Echo Kilo Mike G4 and RC. Yeah, that was why I was sounding a bit blank. You said what I was trying to think out loud when Phil and Mike were talking. I said about members having difficulties switching CTCSSs. There is one area in the northwest which shall remain nameless, where they've got so few members and work so much with their adjacent RAYNET group that they've actually pretty much adopted the adjacent RAYNET frequency. Why? Because it saves people having to reprogram radios. So we can't quite get past some of that, where it's just a little bit too hard to get people to change a frequency. Of course, thinking about events is one thing. I don't want to have a winter of talking about national power outage, but not everything is events, and if we did all come up in a rush for a wider area event, then trying to hustle people out onto the appropriate frequencies rather than what they've normally used for events could get interesting. Hence why we have so many. One of the things we do need to watch for is what happens in many countries, and their emergency comms frequency is the calling frequency. And they just spread out from that, and that's how so many countries organise their emergency comms on 2 meters and 77s. If you have a look for region IARU Region 1 emergency comms frequencies, you'll see how many that actually is. Okay, thank you, Steve. Enjoy the hard life. I think our temperatures are probably there or thereabouts, to be fair. It feels like 30 in this house at the moment. Next, for a final, it's Philip. Golf 4 Kilo India Lima, G4, and RC, over.
G4 and RC, G4 KRL. Thanks, Greg. And yeah, just a couple of comments on there. All understood on your comments in terms of the fact that you could block the frequency without knowing the CTCSS. That's true enough. I suspect the feeling locally has come from, I suspect there was some genuine experience probably, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, where I think there was some unhelpful interference / blocking. And of course, one of the things is if you talk through or repeater is particularly well positioned, so it's got a very good coverage. You can potentially, if you can get into it, you can produce a very effective blocking with very little power going in, because you make use of the repeater to maintain your interference, as it were. Whereas if you didn't have you couldn't get into the repeater and just try to block it on frequency, as it were, you've got to be a bit better positioned yourself, as it were. I think that's probably where some of it came from. Frequency allocations, as far as I can make out, we've got a fairly good agreement along the south coast as to different RAYNET groups as to what frequencies we use. There's nominal allocations as you go along the coast, and in fact, when I mentioned when we used the two, effectively we're borrowing a neighbour's one. I think there was some check with the neighbour that they weren't using it. Yeah, I think that was pretty much how we did that. Okay, very good. I'll leave it there, and I say hopefully I'll be up next week, but we'll have to wait and see if I can get the handheld sorted, or whether I don't think this radio will be back by then. So hopefully I'll get the handheld working. Otherwise, it'll be a week after. And to talk to you on HF if you're up on Thursday, and I make it on Thursday. Very good, Greg. Speak to you and all the rest of you sometime in the future, anyway, if not next week. 73s. I'll keep on listening till that closes. G4NRC, G4KL.
G4KIL, G4NRC. Okay, thanks, Philip. Yes, we know that some zones did organise and some don't, and then it's just how do you keep that discipline going. But the next challenge was how we coordinated between zones, and even on our not that popular 145.2, we got, I think it was Cambridgeshire RAYNET of years gone by, that managed to work us from the lowest point in Chester, from Cambridge, courtesy of a lift. We are a small country for VHF, despite what we might think when we're trying to get members out and all distances are too large. Anyway, we only have 2 stations left to complete the net today. So let's go to the first. So 7-3s to you, Philip, and next to Ian. Golf 3, Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4 and RC, over.
G4 NRC in the group, G3 ZHX. Before I forget, thank you for running the net, Greg, and 73 to all. But yes, one small practical point. You can get a monitor unit that's about the size of the proverbial packet of cigarettes. I think it takes a PP3 to power it. I haven't opened mine for a while, so I can't be sure. It reports the RF frequency, 2 or 70 centimeters, 2 meters or 70 centimeters, and it also reports the CTCSS, and that's very good for checking that you or other people in the group are on band. And it's also a rule of mine to, if possible, do a radio check before leaving the briefing ground, because if there's a problem, it's much easier to sort it out where there's lots of spare kit and spare hands around than it is when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're trying to hold a book to read the programming instructions and the radio in the other hand, and using the third hand to turn the pages in the book. So yes, I'll leave you with that thought, and as I said, thank you, Greg, and this has been G3ZHX.
Golf 3, Zulu Hotel X-Ray, G4 and RC. Oh yes, agreed. If everybody is at a briefing ground, then that making sure everybody's right first does work. The event where we had problems with a member from adjacent area. He was trying to find his way to the briefing ground, and calling in and calling in. He'd got the frequency, but he'd left his CTCSS engaged from the previous event, so that made it a little difficult. And next Sunday, North Staffordshire are coordinating an event which is a 108-mile cycle ride, and there's members from 1, 2, 3, 4 RAYNET groups involved. We aren't getting together in one place beforehand. It's a long day for the riders, not so long for us as they hurdle past. But yeah, you do equally have to make sure everybody's set up right before they go, because there is no briefing to get over. Anyway, thank you for the input, Ian. Thank you for a reminder that there's some nice toys that will check radios quite nicely. Don't think I can justify one. We'll just keep it simple. So the honours for finals today goes to Chris, Golf 6, Papa Delta Echo, and hopefully the Radio Club event went well. I wonder if you've got any other thoughts about timing solutions for pies. G6PDE, G4 and RC, over.
G4 and RC from G6PDE. Nothing more than you said already, Greg. I can confirm that those Raspberry Pi real-time clock modules are not fit for purpose. I used one with Arduino and a DDS module on a breadboard to make a little whisper transmitter. I was in the Radcom about 3 years ago, and found that even after a couple of days of the real-time clock module had drifted off, had to be reset. So I didn't even try with one of those, but I will be trying with the GPS. And the other thing I think is just a conventional watch, because my watch doesn't lose more than a second in a week or so, which should be good enough for JSA call and stuff like that. I think you have to be within 2 seconds. So it should be good enough for an emergency, because always the scenario where GPS is not available as well has to be considered. Nothing more from me, Greg. 73s, this is G6PDE, back to G4 and RC.
Papa Delta Echo, G4 and RC. Yes, 2 seconds accuracy is all you need for a normal 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off JS8 call kind of window. And there is the nice option in JS8 call that I don't think exists in FT8, because it would be absolute anarchy that the receiver can actually listen to everybody else and just set itself to the average of what the rest of the herd is doing. So even if you're not set up against any clock whatsoever, it will try and find some middle path to keep people communicating, which is some of the resilience of what is not a stunningly fast message handling mode, but if you're looking for an engineering order wire or a coordination method, which will work under appalling signal-to-noise conditions of -20 dB, then it still feels like it's worth having a play. I did spend a good chunk of this afternoon's exercise, though, just asking UK stations what some of their settings were to eventually get responses working correctly. But we will get there in the end. Right, we've done quite well for time, so thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming on this afternoon's net. I'll close it now, so be careful, have a good week, and until next Sunday afternoon at 1600 hours local time, I'll close the RAYNET-UK weekly activity period on talk groups 23531 Pheonix and Brandmeister and 5023531 on RAYNET-UK, and return those talk groups to being an open net rather than a directed net. 730, this is Golf 4 November Romeo Charlie now closing and reverting to my normal call sign of Golf 0 Delta Uniform Bravo. Bye bye.